It's not just a statement, it's a shift. A shift in how you're seen, how you feel, and how the world responds to you. When you stop being available, at first it feels wrong, almost cruel. We've been raised to believe that being available is kindness, that to be a good friend, a good partner, a good daughter, a good son, you must always be there. You must be reachable, on call, ready to help, listen, fix, soothe. That's what good people do, right? But Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. And that irritation? It often begins the moment you say, not now, not out of anger, not out of selfishness. Rather, because you're tired, because you've come to see that your kindness has quietly turned into a currency others spend without care. Though you gave it freely, they took it without hesitation. It starts small. You stop replying right away. You pause before answering a call. You don't show up to every emotional emergency. And in that space, silence begins to speak for you. You stop autopiloting your yes and start asking yourself, do I even want to be in this conversation? Am I being present or am I performing? That's when everything begins to change. Think of a time when someone kept messaging you, not because they truly cared how you were, but because they needed something from you. Maybe they were lonely, maybe they had a crisis, or maybe they just didn't want to sit with themselves. So they reached out, not with love, but with need. And you answered, you helped, you supported, you showed up, because that's what you've always done. But over time, you felt it. That dull, emotional fatigue that sinks in after every call. That sense of being drained without knowing why. And suddenly, it hits you. You're not a friend to them. You're a crutch, a distraction, a container for their pain. They offload, they vent, they find relief. And when their crisis ends, silence. No, how are you doing? Or thank you. They're just gone until the next time they need a fix. Yet when you slowly stop being that person, they panic, not because you've hurt them, but because they've lost access. While they once controlled your presence, they now face uncertainty. No more instant comfort, no more instant support, and no more instant validation. The moment you stop being always on call is the moment people show their truth. Ask yourself, how many of your relationships are built on mutual care and how many are built on convenience? We're taught to feel guilty for choosing ourselves, conditioned to believe that accessibility equals value, that if you're always there, you must be kind, dependable, lovable. Right? But here's the quiet truth. Constant availability isn't love. It's self-abandonment in disguise. You become the emotional emergency button. They push it whenever they feel overwhelmed, bored, lonely. And once they feel better, they disappear. It's not just one person, it's a pattern. Look at your phone. Scroll through your chats. How many people only reach out when they need something? Carl Jung spoke of psychic energy, the mental and emotional energy we all possess. And it's finite. Every call you didn't want to answer, every text you felt obligated to reply to, every guilt trip you absorbed. It cost you something. You give a little more of yourself away, and slowly, quietly, you start to burn out. Have you ever felt exhausted after a conversation that seemed one-sided? That's not connection. That's extraction. And when you stop giving that energy, when you pull back, it rattles them. Because now they're left with themselves, their silence, their emptiness, the very things they were trying to escape. You were their buffer, the placeholder, the soothing sound to drown out their own discomfort. And now that you've withdrawn, they have to face it. And not everyone can. Some will lash out, while others may guilt you. A few might call you selfish, distant, or even cold. Not because you've changed, but because you've stopped being what they needed you to be. But that's not your burden to carry. Here's the truth. Some people don't love you. They love your availability, your warmth, your support, your attention, your emotional labor. Take that away, and what's left? If love disappears the moment you stop being useful, was it love to begin with? They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're not the same. They'll say you've become distant, but you're not being distant. You're setting boundaries, you're reclaiming your energy, and you're learning that your peace isn't a prize for others to win. It's a space you protect. And yes, at first, it's lonely. You might question yourself. You might wonder if you're the problem. Because being needed used to feel like being loved. But that was never love. It was dependence disguised as care. Eventually, something shifts again. You stop attracting chaos. You stop drawing in people who only show up for the rescue. You stop being the fixer, the unpaid therapist, the emotional ambulance. And you start attracting peace, mutuality, respect. You find people who don't demand your time, but appreciate it. People who don't just speak, but listen. People who don't see your boundaries as a threat, but as proof of your self-respect. You'll find yourself in conversations that don't leave you emotionally depleted. You'll notice how some people make you feel safe. Not because they need less from you, but because they see you, not just your usefulness. In those spaces, your no is met with grace, which means your silence isn't feared and your boundaries are honored because now, your unavailability isn't seen as rejection. It's recognized as liberation. It's you saying, my time is sacred, my energy is not for rent, and my peace is not your emergency room. And with that, the world around you adjusts. You realize you're not too much for pulling away. You were just surrounded by people who were taking too much. You start showing up for yourself the way you used to show up for others, not out of guilt or out of duty, but out of love. And slowly, your relationships transform. Some fall away because they were never meant to stay, and others deepen because they were always real. You begin to feel different, lighter, calmer, whole, because you finally understand. Love doesn't require your constant availability. It doesn't ask you to sacrifice your sanity. It doesn't demand you show up broken just to prove you care. Real love respects space, honors silence, and celebrates boundaries. So when you stop being always available, you're not being harsh. You're being true. True to yourself, true to your limits, and true to your very own peace. And that changes everything.